We'll start with the shutdown. So they weren't able to strike a deal. To me, it's so galling because it's like what the Democrats are saying is we want you to undo some of the things that just passed in the big, beautiful bill. Well, you already lost that fight. It's been signed into law. It's law now. And they're like, we're not going to fund the government unless you reverse pieces of your law. And the Republicans are like, that's not how legislation is done or undone. And that's not how spending is negotiated. And I think, as near as I can tell, the Democrats are trying to follow the Ezra Klein rule, where he was like, we've got to get out there and fight. We have that sound bite, do we not? We have Ezra Klein with his warning. Oh, no, sorry. It was an article. And I'll read it to you, what he said in part. But this is Ezra Klein saying, we got to fight. It's the New York Times op-ed. I often heard people complain that Democrats lacked a message. What Democrats really lacked was power. And so we're facing the question again, should Senate Democrats partner with Senate Republicans to fund this government? I don't see how they can. We are no longer in the muzzle velocity stage of this presidency. We are in the authoritarian consolidation stage of this presidency. I want to be very clear about what I'm saying here. Donald Trump is corrupting the government. He's using it to hound his enemies, line his pockets, and entrench his own power. This is what Democrats cannot fund. This is what they have to try to stop. This is not just how authoritarianism happens. This is authoritarianism happening. Right now, Democrats have no power, so no one cares what they have to say. A shutdown would make people listen. And I think, near as I can tell, that's exactly what's happening now. Glenn, your thoughts on it?
I sense this kind of ennui and almost boredom in the tone you used when you first started talking about this government shutdown. And I feel the same way. I was talking to my team about it, this week in terms of how we were going to cover it. And I said, I feel like this is something, if you pay attention to politics, happens basically every 2 years. There's kind of a brinksmanship. Sometimes they even do shut down the government for the while. Each side goes on cable all day and blames the other. And eventually it works out. I do think that what really is going on more so than any fight over a particular budgetary item is the fact that, we often talk about how Democrats are so, historically unpopular. And the main reason is because their own base also views the Democratic Party in a very negative way. And the reason for that is that they perceive the Democrats aren't fighting enough in order to stop Trump. And there's a lot of pressure among Democratic Party elected officials, including, the kind of message that you just read from Ezra Klein, to show some sort of battle, to show some sort of willingness to confront Trump. And the problem for the Democrats is not that they keep trying to embrace these almost like theater kid gestures, like, they have Chuck Schumer going on and like trying to curse sometimes, or Gavin Newsom, trying to show that he can talk like Trump. And the problem with the Democratic Party is not that they're not performative enough or fighting enough in terms of like showing this. It's that no one knows what they stand for. They don't really have any sort of passionately felt views. And the ones they do feel passionately about, they feel like are too unpopular to really forefront. And so you have this kind of vapid, kind of theatrical gesture of fighting, but there's just no substance behind it. And so there's no galvanizing force that it really is generating. And at some point, they're going to capitulate.
All I can picture is like the skinny kid on the playground up across from like the muscly guy going like, make me, right? Like you really don't want him to respond, like sometimes you actually need to be able to fight and not just be able to threaten that you're willing to fight. And I just feel like the Democrats are the skinny kid with no muscle. They've got no cards to play. They're going to get blamed for this shutdown. The Republicans were ready to just continue the funding levels at existing levels and said, let's go forward, as we have been for at least the next 7 weeks. And the Democrats said, no, we want you to take away these provisions that have been passed into law and continue supplementing Obamacare payments, and basically funding illegal health care. And because the big, beautiful bill cracks down on Medicaid funding for illegals. And I guess there is a real question about who's going to get blamed. But to me, it just seems like the Republicans were willing to continue funding the government and the Democrats weren't. So the public will blame the Democrats. I'm not sure exactly how the Democrats win on this. And on top of all that, Trump is threatening to do more DOGE cutting now that the government is shut down, which is his priority, which is his prerogative. He can do that, which the Democrats hate too. And they think, like their old argument when we had Doge and Elon was the American people are going to hold this against you. Guess what? They didn't. We just saw in the latest New York Times poll, Trump's ratings haven't slipped at all from 4 months ago when he was doing all the Dojification. So I really just don't see the hand the Democrats have to play other than bending the knee to Ezra Klein.
I mean, the thing is, in our elections, because 50% of the country just doesn't vote because they don't believe in the system or they don't believe it matters, being able to galvanize your base is actually an extremely important obligation of any party that wants to win, especially in a midterm year when there's no presidential election. And if you're faced with a situation, as the Democrats are, where huge amounts of your voters, your core voters, are really disillusioned with you based on their perception that you're not fighting Trump enough. And Trump actually himself this week said, you know what, the left and liberals, they're kind of dead. They're kind of pathetic. I was expecting much more of a fight from them, and they don't really fight anything. This is the perception that pretty much everyone has, in large part because it's true. They're led by these really old people who have been around for decades. They are trapped between the interests of their donor base, their corporate donor base, and their voter base that has a much different set of ideas about, and they're very, very lost. And I don't know, I get, it's always a feature of our democracy that although a party is in the minority, they're still supposed to have a say. And it's just that the problem with the Democrats, it was the problem with the Kamala Harris campaign, is they don't have a persona. What do Democrats believe in? They're trying to center it around this idea that Republicans want to cut Medicaid, which a lot of the core Republican voters, like the white working class and even like multiracial working class voters in these swing states that voted for Trump, will actually suffer from. It's not a terrible issue. It's not a bad issue. It's just that there's no charisma, there's no energy, there's no vibrancy. And when they try and demonstrate it, it's so clearly coming from the script of a PR consultant that it just falls so flat and almost makes you feel sorry for them rather than intimidated by them. And that's their real problem.
I love your use of the term theater kids. No offense to theater kids, because, I have a daughter who loves theater, but I get it. It connotes a certain, at my high school, we had groups. This is back in the 80s, of course. The more popular kids were called the swelts. You had the jocks. They were cool too. Then you had the dirties, who were the people who hung out in the smoking section during free time and played hacky sack. And then you had the creamies, who were the theater kids. It just connotes a certain kind of approach. And the creamies on Capitol Hill right now want us to believe they're super tough, but what we know, they're not actually tough. We know it is cosplaying. And that I think of Gavin Newsom, who he's not in Capitol Hill, but he's their best imitation of a tough guy, I think. You know what I mean? Nobody believes Chuck Schumer's a tough guy. Hakeem Jeffries doesn't seem scary at all. Then you got Newsom, who's oh yeah, I'm badass. And he's trying to do the Trump tweets with the all caps and do his best imitation of JD or Trump. But you can tell it's acting. It doesn't work if I can tell it's acting.
Exactly. And to me, if you were to ask me, what is the singular factor that explains Donald Trump's political dominance over our country over the last 10 years, I would have no difficulty answering. It's that Trump, for whatever faults he has, for whatever mistakes he makes, for whatever things he says that you might find off-putting, he is who he is. It's who he has always been. It's his personality since the time he emerged decades ago on the public scene. He's comfortable in his own skin because he's being himself. And that's something you cannot fake. That's something you can't manufacture. And I think, honestly, if you look at the Democrats who have galvanized people's excitement, for whatever you might think of them, people like Bernie Sanders or Zohran Mamdani or even AOC, totally, they at least have a kind of conviction, a set of beliefs that they are willing to state. And yeah, it's authentic, whatever else might be true about them. And the problem with the Democratic Party is, especially in the age, since Bill Clinton's emergence, which was one of the successes of the Clinton machine, they merged with the elite centers of power in the United States. So if you want to rise in the Democratic Party ranks, you have to know how to speak to Ivy League graduates from Wall Street and Silicon Valley and Hollywood. Those are the people who rise, like the Chuck Schumers, the Hakeem Jeffries, the Gavin Newsoms. These people rise because they're very good at raising massive amounts of money from the country's elite. That's where they're most comfortable. And they don't have this other side to them. They can't fake it. And when they try, it just makes things worse for them.
Did you know gold is up around 40% this year? That's not speculation. That is reality. And if a portion of your savings is not diversified into gold, you're missing the boat. Here are the facts. Inflation, still too high. The U.S. dollar, still too weak. And the government debt is still growing. This is why central banks are flocking to gold. They're the ones driving prices up to record highs. But it's not too late to buy gold from Birch Gold Group and get in the door right now. Birch Gold will help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. You don't pay a dime out of pocket. Just text MK to 989898 and claim your free info kit. There's no obligation. There's just useful information. The best indicator of the future is the past, and in this case, the present. Gold has historically been a safe haven, and it's doing gangbusters right now. So text MK to 989898 right now to claim your free info kit on gold. Text MK to 989898. Protect your future today with Birch Gold. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.